Hello guys, welcome back. Episode number 6 of this tutorial about using Context API in React applications. So let me get started and talk about the new episode. The feature that we want to develop in this episode is adding books to specific authors. Right now, if you remember, our application, our dashboard, lists the authors from the author context. It also gives us this little form to add one author to the context, and then by combining author context as well as the book context, it can render the authors and the books associated with that author. Now let's get started and create another component to add books to the application. So this is the objective. We're going to create a form where the user can select an author from a drop-down, enter the title of the book, and add the book to that author via the shared book context. So the concepts that we are going to work on is control form inputs. We're going to manage the form using useState. We need to take care of the relationship between authors and books. So like author is the parent and book is the child, right? And mutating context state. We're going to use set books to append the book to the book context. This is the component that we need to create. So let me tell you something. If you remember from the books by author component developed in the previous episode, we're combining both of our contexts, author context and book context. So the same thing is happening inside of the add book. Why? Because add book as a component also wants to allow us to set a book to an author. So it needs to have access to both of those contexts. So we're going to import useState. We're going to import those two custom hooks from the two contexts. We're going to use those custom hooks to get access to the authors array, as well as to the books array, as well as to the set books. Why don't we need to have access to set authors? Because we're not going to create a new author. We're only going to create a new book. So this is why we also need to have access to set books, right? Using set books, we want to have the possibility to add one book to the book context. And using these, we'll be able to list out the authors and the books. And then we have this local state to set the title of the book. We also have another local state to track the ID of the selected author, because we want to allow the user to select one author from a list, and the book that the user is going to create is going to be assigned to that author. Then we have this function for the form submission. We're going to prevent the default behavior of the form. We're going to do a simple data validation. We're going to create a new book, and the author ID of that book is going to be this local state. So set author ID. We're going to convert that to number. And afterwards, we're going to use the set books coming from the book context to add this new book to the books available in that array. Then we're going to reset the title state as well as the selected author ID. Now, the inputs, this input, which is taking the title of the book, is bound to that local state. Then we have a drop down so that the user can select the author ID that the book needs to be assigned to. So again, as you can see, this is being bound to that selected author ID, two-way data binding, right? And for the options, we are mapping through the authors that we have inside of the author context. This is the array coming from the author context, to show the name of each author. So, and for each option, we're going to set the key which is going to be used for this option to the ID of the author, and the value is going to be the ID of the author as well. But inside of the option, we're going to print out the name of the author, and then the button which will of course submit the form. So this is the add book component. I'm going to create it now. Inside of the app component, the components folder, I'm going to create addbook.jsx, and we're going to write the code. So useState, use authors as well as use books. Then we're going to create this component, use those two custom hooks, use authors and use books, create this local state, create another local state for tracking the selected author from the dropdown, creating the function for handling the form submission, doing the data validation, creating the new book that needs to be added. The author ID is going to be selected author ID converted to number, and then set books to add that book to the context, and then returning a form. The form is going to have an input for the title of the book and another select element for showing the names of the authors that the user can select to assign that book to that author. And then of course we will have a button to submit the form, and when the form is submitted, that function is going to handle the submission of the form. This is the options. We're using an array, and then we're exporting the component. So this is it. Now we need to use this. We need to use this component inside of our inside of our app.jsx. So this is the app.jsx. We are importing the add book. This is the add book component, and here before the books by author, we're going to render the add book component. So back to our app.jsx, let's render the add book component here. So we can enter the title of the book, for example, React Development Made Easy. And then the author is going to be me. We're going to add this book to this author. And this shows up instantly because this component is making use of both of those contexts, the book context and the author context. And because this form is updating the book context, when I click add book, and that book context is shared among these two components, this new component, books by author, is showing the update instantly. So what you should see, you should see an input for entering the title of the book, a drop down for selecting the author, a button to add one book to that selected author, and then the book will appear instantly below the list. To prevent books from being added without an author, we disabled the submit logic unless both fields are valid. So this is it. This is the thing that we have developed in this episode, the ability to add one book and assign that book to one author. Let's wrap up this video here and continue talking about this in the next one.